Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to another Precious Metal Ramble where we have down-to-earth discussions about all things precious and shiny. And apparently copper is now included in that category of precious and shiny because, well, a lot of people are buying it right now. A lot of people are falling under the spell, the illusion that copper is a tangible investment. Look, it's real. You can pick it up, you can buy copper for a certain price and try and sell it for a higher price, and thereby it is actually an investment. But is it really a serious investment? I'm going to say no, I'm afraid. There are other ways that one can invest in silver that's non-traditional. We've got some of those examples out here, some spoons, some chains and various other things. But copper, really, are we there yet with copper being a replacement for silver because silver is too expensive? I would argue strongly no, and I would argue very strongly that buying copper right now at a certain price, whatever you're paying per kilo, that's, you know, a nice new fresh kilo bar of copper that looks fancy and everything, and you're paying 70, 80, 90, 100 pounds for that kilo. The premium on that is just ridiculous compared with what you can pick up silver at the moment. These silver chains I've picked up well under spot price, 80% of spot price and less on some of them, in fact. So it is a very interesting discussion to think about non-traditional ways to invest in silver that perhaps are cheaper than more traditional ways like silver bullion, coins and bars, which have quite high premiums at the moment. And we're talking on premiums. We'll talk more about copper and the ridiculousness of copper in a bit. This copper bar here is one I've owned for nearly a decade, in fact over a decade now, and I wish I'd never bought it, quite frankly. It was a waste of money, but it's just something that's pretty, that's hung around in one of my safes for the last decade. So let me know your thoughts down in the comment section on this subject. We're going to talk first about non-traditional silver investing. So everybody knows silver, 999 fine silver is the kind of industry standard now, but the industry standard before we knew how to refine silver up to that 999 fine standard was sterling silver, and it was used for coins and it was used for cutlery, spoons, knives, forks, all of this jazz for hundreds of years, if not nearly the better part of an entire millennium. So how do you know that what you're getting is right? Because you can buy silver, cutlery, spoons, knives, forks and so on, oh that's upside down, at a really quite competitive price. A lot of the scrap, as we call it, scrap now that's going, is going below spot price considerably. And if you're paying spot or above for silver spoons, unless they're really old with some really nice history to them and a little bit of panache about what they're all about, then you're probably overpaying. But if you're paying, like I often pay, 80% of spot price for sterling, you can get really good prices on this. But you've got to be conscious of two things. First, your return on investment is very much based on that spot price play. And if you are looking to liquidate sterling silver, you're often really at a whim of whatever the scrap merchants might pay, or having to do it yourself. The second point is around making sure that what you actually get is actually sterling silver. Now, a lot of these chains are not actually UK hallmarks. A lot of them are made in Italy, but there are some that have UK hallmarks on them. I forget which ones out of all of these, but the vast majority of these have been tested by XRF, so I know that they are genuine, but you take a risk on some of them. I've been around enough silver to know that most of these are going to be genuine, and there's going to be definitely some silver content here, but that's what you build into sort of the risk portfolio. Look at this bloody great big chain. Look at that. Imagine being like walking around with that around your neck. That would be quite impressive. Most of the time, though, you just get the simple mark of 925. So you've got to be careful. You've got to know what it feels like. You've got to know what to look for. But those hallmarks are really important. You often find with jewellery like this that's been imported from different countries that the different standards there are not required for hallmarks. Now, hallmarks is something that I've been really hot on for, well, the decade that I've been doing poured silver. All my pieces are hallmarked. There's a small argument to be made that certain pieces wouldn't need a hallmark because they just constitute bullion as per the legislation. But for those that perhaps don't know what we're talking about, if you're outside the UK, perhaps in the UK, it is illegal to sell or describe any item as gold, silver, platinum or palladium unless it's hallmarked. Now, there are exemptions, which, as I said, cover things like bullion. So if you've just got an unworked piece of bullion, or if it's a bullion bar, like for example, a kilo bar of silver, you don't need to have that hallmarked to sell it because it's just constituted as bullion. But where the grey line comes in is for things like poured silver, where I've manufactured something, I've put extra labour into it, and I've put a markup on it, and I'm selling it at a premium. Unless it's just simply a basic bullion bar, one would definitely argue that there is a requirement to hallmark it. And if you don't hallmark it and you're a poured silver producer, then really you're just having a laugh with your customers, because ultimately the only person that loses out here are potentially the customers. I've had assay failures on my poured silver, and you have to take it seriously. You really do, because you just don't know when somebody's going to mix in an old silver sterling necklace into a batch of silver and try and get away with it and try and pull a fast one. It happens actually a lot more than people might think. So the only reason people don't hallmark their own poured silver, in my humble opinion, is because they don't want the extra cost. It costs money to do that, and the faff and the admin and the hassle of doing it. But ultimately, hallmarking actually adds more value than it does cost to hallmark, and that's the honest truth of it. It really does. So, for example, if I'm looking right now to buy these unhallmarked necklaces, so this is what you might do if you're looking to get hold of some really kind of efficient priced silver, and you're faced with buying an unhallmarked chain, which you've got a good degree of certainty is actually going to be something that is silver. Yeah, you can take a risk on it, but you are having to factor in that risk. So what price do you pay to factor in the risk? Often I will quote down at this sort of the 80% mark, because I am going to be taking a risk on it. I don't have an XRF. I have access to an XRF via some local pawn shops that I could go to and just casually go in and say, oh, I'm looking maybe to sell this. Can I have a quick check on it? But beyond that, I am ultimately taking a bit of a risk on these kind of things. So it is important to mitigate that by putting that price down. But if it is hallmarked, I know that it's going to be genuine, and I will pay the premium. I will pay higher than the 80%. So you can see, if you are going to be investing in a non-traditional way of getting silver, like spoons and stuff, go for the hallmark stuff. And the same is said for poured silver, in my humble opinion. But unfortunately, it's sort of a similar world to the copper right now. So there are people who just like to make things, and they want to get things out the door, and they sell it, and it's gone, and that's fine. That's their business, that's their way of doing it, sure. I'll probably ruffle some feathers by doing this. I know that there are some people who have very strong opinions about the fact that they don't need to hallmark things, or they think they don't need to hallmark things, but I know I'm not the only one in the community that thinks that that's a load of tosh. But it adds value. It adds value more than what it costs to do. So if you are looking to do a non-traditional investment into something that's not traditional bullion, I love this stuff. This is great. If you can pick this up for a cheap price, you are not ever really going to go far wrong. But if you're overpaying for things, therein lies the problem. And that is where we're going to segue back over to copper. I've done my best to try and untangle all of these, but then I'm just going to throw them all into a great big pile again. I guess that's part of the beauty of this stuff. You don't really need to worry about it. It's just beautiful old stuff, and there's definitely a market for that. Like you could polish those up, clean them up, you could put them up on eBay and get a better price than 85%. There's always a margin on those kind of things. Same with the spoons and stuff. Right, copper. Let's talk about copper, because this is where we sort of segue into overpaying for things. I paid £35 for this kilo of copper back 2015-16 when I bought it. It actually features in one of my very earliest videos, my copper stack, I called it. I was a bit naive at the time, thinking, oh well, it's something I can buy. But at the time you could pick up copper rounds for about 50p a round, and in fact, one of the things I used to do is I used to import a bunch of copper stuff from the US, and if you bought with enough, sort of economy of scale, it worked out to be about 50p delivered, including the tax. And then I would sell them on eBay. I'd sell them for about £1 on eBay. And then the postage on top's about £1.50, £1.60 at the time. And I'd put a business card, Backyard Bullion business card, in every single package that went out. And I got loads of customers from that. It grew my business. It was great. But, if you're making 50p a coin, is it really an investment? And now I see people spending, I haven't even really checked what the live prices are for an ounce of copper now, but £7-8 for a 1 ounce copper round is a load of tosh, really. And kilo bars now, you see people just making these kilo bars and tarting them up with nice designs, and, you know, all of this. It just, I don't get it. Am I missing something? I don't get it. Because ultimately there's no safety net underneath here for copper. If you take copper into a bullion dealer, they won't take it. There might be some very limited examples of some bullion dealers that sell copper on a regular basis that might pay you a certain price for it because they know they can turn around and sell it to the next unsuspecting victim of the copper craze. But yeah, I genuinely just don't understand the craze of it. Now, I get that you can get some nice looking things made out of copper. This was something I bought, I think, about a year after I bought that one, because it just looked cool. I saw an advert for it, you know, an oriental mark of copper with 1 kilo on it, and it's a copper cube and everything, and yeah, it's great. And this one cost me like 50 quid, and I could sell them now. I could probably, I mean, could I though? Because it's all dirty and marked up. Copper, of course, oxidizes over time. It looks pretty horrible over time. It looks lovely when it's all nice and sealed in its cellophane, but I guess just no. I mean, I could maybe scrap this and sell it on eBay for 50, 60, 70 quid, break even a little bit, but quite frankly, I just use it as a paperweight now. In fact, I used it in a D&D game not that long ago. I set a little puzzle for my players. I brought out, I have a tungsten cube, which is lovely. I got sent a tungsten cube by a customer of mine. I got a tungsten cube, a silver cube, I got some copper bars out, and I was like, the part of the puzzle of the D&D game was they had to solve a trap or a riddle to open the next area of their D&D game, and they had to put certain things on either side of the scales of justice, you know, to make sure that they were the right weights. But yeah, it was an interesting one to say the least. But honestly, it's not an investment, copper. It's just a joke. It's just a way for companies to make money. Now, I've seen a couple of content creators that there's one that's got his bee in his bonnet about the Germanium Mint making copper stuff, and ultimately it's not actually the fault of the companies making the products. It's the fault of the people buying the products that's the problem. I did this in another video, and I don't get why there's a lot of criticism levied towards the companies that make the products. I don't really care if Germanium Mint makes copper products. If they make copper products and they make money off that because the market's stupid for it, that's not the Germanium Mint's problem. That's your problem. That's your problem for buying this crap. You know, it is what it is. That the Germanium Mint makes lovely products, lovely bars of copper, really high quality. But ultimately, you're paying like 3 times what the value of the metal is. And if you ever try and scrap it, you're going to get about half the value of what the metal is. So you're about 6x down on your investment. It just doesn't make sense at all. Now, from the last perspective that I just want to mention is just about silver scrap again. I do think this is actually a really good way to invest in silver. You just got to be careful with it. That is the ultimate message here. So if you're looking to get into the world of precious metals right now, and you're perhaps looking at the premiums on, you know, right now you're buying a 1 ounce Britannia from one of the big bullion dealers off the Royal Mint, and you're paying 75, 80, 90 pounds an ounce for special designs. Is that really a good deal? Is it more falling into the category of copper, where it's just overpriced tat? Probably. Buy something with history, buy something that's got practicality behind it, buy something that's got some nice desirable qualities, but don't overpay for it. Know what you're trying to buy, get them for the right price that you can get them for, and you'll be, I think, quite content with what you get. But also educate yourself, learn about hallmarking. So anyway, that's it from me. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you all on the next video. As always, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.